why not do it yourself? With Wix, you can create your own professional website. Choose from hundreds of templates. Whether you're a small business owner or an artist, we've got something for you. Just drag and drop to create your site exactly the way you want. It's easy. Change your text. Choose one of your backgrounds or upload your own. Connect your site to your favorite social media channels and add popular web apps and services like Google Maps, contact forms, and so much more.
Okay, that's a new one for me right there, boss. Well, welcome to the show. Rabbi Chaim Coffman, controversial issues tonight. We're going to be discussing Zionism. What is it? Who can claim it? All this other stuff. I'm not turning your mic up yet, Rabbi, because apparently there's a video playing on the same feed that I've got your mic on. So hang on one second. Let me turn that video down. And if I could find out where it is. Boom. Oh, that's really weird. It was like it was playing an ad before our show. How funny was that? Interesting. Okay, I think that's good now. So, Rabbi, how are you?
Yeah, doing great. How are you? How's all the listeners?
Baruch Hashem, I'm doing great. I hope the listeners are doing well. I think we've got Neil Thompson, Elisheva, C. Taylor, Michelle. Shalom, everybody. Miriam McCoy, shalom to you. Welcome, everybody. Glad you're able to join us. People have a habit of like tuning in, and they'll tune in like 10, 15 minutes late, and then they'll miss a lot of really good stuff, and they won't go back and rewatch it again, not realizing all the juicy stuff that they left behind. So hopefully they won't do that. Hopefully everybody will be able to come back and watch the whole show, or tune in within the first 5 minutes of small talk so they don't miss anything. That's going to be our goal, or that's what we.
You can't miss the beginning. That's the best part.
I know, right, man? You got to have that's the foundation right there. That there's the cornerstone. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. This is last night. It was actually the title came to me last night because it was on last night's show where Rabbi Federow and I were talking about. Someone had called in asking about Zionism, and somebody actually commented said that would be a really really good topic for some sort of controversial topic. I said let's do it. So here we go. So you get all the bones and everything to go with it. So
and he said, "I know just the guy to do it."
There is a guy. I know there's a guy. A crazy rabbi in Israel. So, but anyway, before we get started, phone lines. I guess we should leave closed tonight. I don't want to get yelled at. We'll open up the phone lines. 855-95 Bible. That's 855-952-4253. As soon as I find it, it'll be on your screen.
Come on, if nobody yells at you, then I will. So we'll be good. We'll be good. Got to make up for lost time.
Hey, watch out now, Paulie. Okay, so let me go ahead and log into the cell phone or to the Ring Central. So, oh, good. I had to make sure y'all didn't see me typing my password on my keyboard. It's like, breach of system, breach of security. Okay, so we are officially logged in. Phone lines are open, so feel free to call in with your questions or concerns. Actually, forget your concerns. Just if you get questions, I'm just kidding.
If you have concerns, you're in the wrong place.
Hey, it's funny. I was going to say take it to the complaint department, but one time I have a younger brother who is he's like a half. He is a half brother, and he's always been a player. He just thinks he's Mr. Joe Cool and Mr. Hot Stuff, and so every time we would go anywhere, he would always embarrass all of us by hitting on like every woman in there. If you look like that you were a possibility, he was flirting with you. And so this one day we were at this place, and there was a nice looking woman behind the bar, and we were just eating like what do you call those baked pickles or something like that, where they deep fry like bread pickles and they deep fry them, and I had a beer or something there, and man, he just started laying it on thick just real fast, and within about 2 minutes of him talking to her, she wrote down this phone number, slipped it over to him, and boy, did that really get him. He was like, all of a sudden he was like Elvis, man, at that point, and I was like, oh my God, we're never going to hear the end of this. And so about 15 minutes later, we was getting ready to leave, and he decided to go ahead and call her while we were walking out the car. he calls this number, and he just knew it was her number, and he put it on speakerphone. It says, "You have reached the something about the rejection hotline." I was like, "Yeah, you're a stud. Good job, bud." Anyway, I need to find one of those numbers. Okay, yeah, to give out to.
All you have to do is come to my class.
Right. That's awesome. Just in case I forget, before we kick off, I'll just tell everybody too. In the beginning, if you don't mind, I'm going to hijack your show. In 2018, we are planning a TORAH Talk tour to Israel. It's going to be me and Rabbi Singer. Will be there, but I plan on swinging by this guy's place sometime during the trip, and so it would be nicely convenient to have a lot of, including Ira Michelson may be there as well. So anyway, 2018, not sure what time. It's going to be somewhere around fall probably. I'll be posting the details soon, so I don't know really any details yet. I just know it's going to happen, and be me and Rabbi Singer as hosts. So look forward to that. That's going to be awesome. And you got to act quick because I just posted it yesterday, and there's already about about 15 people who are already expressing extreme interest. And I've only got 30 seats, 30 places open. So when the time comes and that flyer gets put out there, be sure to snatch it right away. So. Okay.
Anyone's going to want to come see me, so that's going to drop it down by half. So you got plenty of time. Don't worry. Don't listen to him. You got plenty of time.
Hey, speaking of seeing you, beyond... Oh, that was a cat. I heard this big thud, and I looked down at my big fat cat. It was like walking across the floor. Oh, the table just shook. I'm just kidding. She's a big cat, though. She used to be like 28 pounds. Her name's Lucy, and we called her Butterball for short for a while. So, anyway, orthodoxconversion.com. If anybody who's watching this tonight live in the future, whatever, and if you're even just curious about what conversion is all about, contact Rabbi. He can answer questions for you, or if you want to take it more seriously, you've got classes that you could take. If anybody knows how conversion processes work, this is your man. So, by the way, how did that lecture series work out?
So it's moving. We got it optimized. Did a webinar on people coming out of idolatry or Christianity and want to go in whichever direction, either be a Noahide or actual conversion. There are 6 modules plus 7 interviews with people in the process of conversion or finished the conversion process, or actually are Noahides and staying as Noahides. So that gives people information exactly which way possibly they want to go, and people that they can actually relate to. I didn't find these people on the street, and they're not actors. So. Right. It was good that people get a feel for, what to do after they come out, because most people come out have no idea, can they convert? I know people spinning their wheels for a long time and all that. So, anyone interested, you can take a look at my Facebook fan page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism. Put it in a lot of different groups. So, webinar, whatever, it's about 40 minutes. It's actually, kind of entertaining. Also, nice pictures up there, so you can hear me reading a mile a minute. So if you can, if you can follow it, great.
Yeah, and if you're wanting to follow Rabbi Coffman, definitely go to the fan page. But if you're wanting to send him like hate mail and stuff, he actually has a special group set up for that. That you'll want to sign up for. Anyway, just kidding. Right. Okay, so Elisheva, the trip will cost roughly $2,200. This is the trip to Israel tour, TORAH Talk tour. $2,200 plus your airfare. We can't include the airfare cost because people are flying from all over. There's no way to figure out how much that's going to cost. So $2,200 plus your airfare, and I do believe that covers you from the moment you land in Israel until the time you get back to the airport. So the only money you'll be spending is on your flight here and on your flight home. Once you're here, once we're there, so as you set foot on the ground, everything from that moment on, from what I understand, room, board, whatever case, food and stuff like that is all covered in that cost. So anyway, so fair enough. And Jason Akers, you're a crazy dude. Love you, man. Green Acres Pest Control. I have my system blow-up kit ready to go. He knows me way too well. Actually, he knows you way too well. You're the only person. See, this doesn't happen with me. This only happens whenever you show up. So, thank you. Yeah. Next time, Jason, just title your message directly to him. so that way I won't get my feelings hurt. I'm just kidding. So I got pretty thick skin sometimes. So, all right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's get this thing kicked off. And first thing I want to do is find something to write on. And I see it right here. Hang on one second, because I want to take about a 5 or 6. We may have to do multiple shows on this, like this week and next week, depending on how many bullet points we want to cover. The very first thing I want to cover on this is, what is a Zionist? What does it mean? What's the definition of Zionism? So, oh God, you know what's funny? I'm a carpenter and I absolutely hate writing with pencils. It just, it reaches me. It's like nails across the chalkboard.
Get out the hacksaw.
Oh man, I really do. I just totally just hate drawing with the pencil. And not only a carpenter, but an artist as well. And I hate pencils. It's really bizarre. Okay, so
sorry. When I was in first grade, I was told I would never, amount to anything because of the way I draw, and I still can't draw. So
really,
so somehow I have artistic children, but probably through my wife, not through me. But I somehow overcame it. 7, 8 years old. It was tough, but we worked through it. So good. All right.
Okay.
So let's get started here.
So before we start describing anything, let's go over some bullet points that we want to cover. So what is Zionism, for one thing? Is it associated with racism, right? I've actually heard somebody say once that they were a black Zionist Jew and that they were the true Jews, and the Jews occupying the land of Israel are fake. I want to touch on that. I want to hammer it on this one if we need to. I want details. I want to see it. Maybe there's some truth to it. Maybe there's no truth. Maybe it's half and half. Who knows? So, okay, black.
If I'm fake, does that mean I don't exist? I think, therefore I am.
That's funny.
All right.
Okay. What?
All right, so let's start.
Let's just start there. Do you want to start there, or do you want to go ahead and point out a few more bullets?
No, I'll start from there. I mean, it's probably gonna, go on to other things also. But, what is a Zionist? The funny thing is, it depends how you're gonna look at it. If you want to look at it from a Torah perspective, the Torah itself, many, many times, will say that, if you go from beginning to end, it's very clear that the Jewish people belong in the land of Israel. Now, God promised it to Abraham, God promised it to Isaac, promised it to Jacob, and to all his children, and to the Jewish people. And throughout the Torah, God says clear, this is for all generations. You're going to go into the land, you're going to take over, you're going to get rid of all the, the 7 nations that are there. And unfortunately, because of what happened with the sin of the spies in the book of Numbers, so they had to go around, sort of like around China for 40 years, in the desert before they could actually go in. But clear as day that, the land, definitely belongs to the Jewish people, according to the Torah. So we'll go back actually to the beginning, where in Genesis, the beginning of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1, where it says God created the heavens and the earth. So Rashi over there asks, why is it that the Torah starts with creation? Why doesn't the Torah start with the first mitzvah, right? The first mitzvah being Rosh Chodesh, sanctifying the months and the new moon, etc. in Exodus chapter 12, the beginning of Exodus chapter 12. So Rashi over there says, because the nations are going to claim, right? The nations of the world are going to claim, hey, what are you doing taking our land? Like, you've stolen our land. The 7 nations are going to say, like, who are these people that come in, and take the land? So Rashi says the Torah starts with God created the heaven and the earth. You know why? Because, if God wants, he can do whatever he wants. He can put the people in the land. He can take the people out of the land. And, if he's going to send the Jewish people there, so the land belongs to them. If they don't deserve it, so fine. He will spit them out, as the Torah says, at the end of the book of Leviticus. So, therefore, the nations can't have any claim, right? Because, God giveth, God taketh away. So, if we look at it from a Torah perspective, and when a Jew prays 3 times a day, we say that we're going to go back to the land of Zion. What is the land of Zion, right? Pretty clear, that is the land of Israel. So, I had a relative once that said, like, how do you know how do you know and you claim that, the land of Israel belongs to the Jews? Right? So I said, well, did you ever read the Bible from cover to cover? I said, it's pretty clear. You can disagree with the, whoever wrote it, so to speak. But I said, if you read the Bible from cover to cover, you see the movie, it's pretty clear, right? The Jewish people belong in the land of Israel. So, there are many, many prayers that a Jew says we're going back. That is the land, for us that God had promised. Now, God can also say, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, then I'm going to spit you out of the land, which has happened twice, right? Happened by the first temple destruction, happened by the second temple destruction. So now, even though we're back in the land of Israel, and this doesn't get into messianic times and whatever, but this is the first time in 2,000 years, that the Jews have been back, right, for the last 60 years, right? And we'll get into more about the difference between the state of Israel, right, what we call Medinat Yisrael, which we're living in today, and the land of Israel. Two different things. So Zionism, from a Torah perspective, is about living in the land, right? The whole perspective, is exactly that. So now let's look at it from a secular perspective. So you take a look at Theodor Herzl and, people like him. He came up, with the idea, and others as well, that the Jews deserve their own homeland. So when you look at it in those terms, Jews were being persecuted all over Europe and, in other places, being, pogroms and other things. So he came up with a great idea that, the Jews should go back, should have their own homeland. But, he said, we don't want to be so obnoxious and say, really, the land belongs to us. God forbid we should offend anybody, right? So he said, if we can't get the land of Israel, we'll take Argentina, right? We'll take Uganda. Imagine if I'd be living in Uganda right now. We'd have a lot more fun over here. It's like, wow, look what's going on outside, But he would have been happy with that. So, he didn't want to, God forbid, he should have offended anybody. So that's, from a secular perspective, we go back to the land, just like, the Albanians have Albania, the English have England, the Italians have Italy. So Jews should have their own homeland. Which homeland is that? Again, clear according to the Torah, right, is going to be the land of Israel. Now, secular Zionism has a major problem. First of all, it's pretty much dead today. There aren't so many, Zionists left, except for the cab drivers here in Israel. So I'm not exactly sure, what the connection between the cab drivers and, the Zionists are, because the Zionist dream is pretty much ended. The people that are coming here, more and more, from the States and other places that are coming to live here, are Orthodox Jews. Right, a secular Jew to come here, forget about political problems, forget about the Arabs, forget about how difficult it is to live here. There's only one reason anybody should want to come here, right? And that reason is because, it's the land of the Jewish people, and because the Torah says it's the best place to be. Now, if you can't live here, and there are other issues, let's say financial issues, person has parents that they can't leave, they have, health issue, whatever the case is, okay, then there's not a mitzvah, certainly to live here. And again, we can get more into that, as well. But, the secularists the secular Zionists will say we have a right to the land. Now, again, it's not based on the Torah. They won't claim it's based on the Torah. So keep in mind one thing. When the Jewish people came and they liberated the Western Wall, in 1967, the Satmar Rebbe, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, may his name be blessed, he definitely was an anti-Zionist, and, we'll get into that as well. But he said something that people thought he was absolutely crazy when he said it. What he said was, the same people that liberated the Western Wall, right, and Jerusalem itself, he said, are going to be the same people that are going to give it back. Now, when he said that at the time of this great fervor, where, Jews hadn't been to the Western Wall in, how many years, how many hundreds, thousands of years that they hadn't been, to the Western Wall. At the time when it's liberated and they're blowing the shofar and people are crying at the Western Wall, He said, yeah, the same people who came here are going to be the same ones that are going to return it. So you would look at that and say, what, are you kidding? Like, come on. You think that these people, that fought for the land are going to give it back? Well, you see what's going on. They'll give the land back if it's going to make peace, quote unquote. They'll give the land back at any stretch because they say, oh, this is going to bring peace. But a Jew that doesn't have a connection to the land is going to spit you out. So you have two totally contradictory things. One is the Torah perspective on the land, and the second thing is the secular perspective, on the land. Now, the secular perspective on the land, according to them, they'll build up the land, and they'll do whatever in the land of Israel, but it'll have absolutely zero to have to do with Torah. Because when the people came and they dug out the swamps, many people died. When there were Jews getting gassed in Europe. So there were people that, had visas that wanted to come to the land of Israel, and they rejected them. They didn't want them. The secular Zionists said, we only want people going to help build the land. We don't want to have these, old European Jews with their old Torah, with their old laws. We want to be the new Jews. We want to build them up. We want to build up the land. Yeah, you know what happened? They stopped people from coming. They had an opportunity to ransom thousands of Jews. They could have ransomed thousands of people and saved them. And they said, you know what? We're not interested. Why? Because, Herzl's idea, you can read this in the Zionist state. Herzl's idea was a state of Jews, not a Jewish state. Meaning, not a Jewish state run by Torah law.
Right.
Right? Or people say, oh, Sharia law. You're going to, now you're going to say, I can't drive on Shabbos and I can't do this. What they call religious coercion. Right? But that's exactly what they wanted to fight against. That's what exactly secular Jews, fight against religious Jews here all the time. And if it wasn't religious Jews in this country, this place would look like any other place. Go to downtown Tel Aviv. Go to any other city outside of, pretty much outside of Jerusalem, and, you would think you're in Miami. You would think you're in, Boston. It has a tremendous secular outlook. I remember years ago when a number of American, fast food franchises, had made it to Israel. So people thought, Kentucky Fried Chicken, these other things, like, what a great thing. I'm like, get this garbage out of here. That's not what the Torah wants. We don't want all the, all this stuff from Americans, all based on Torah. But if it's not based on Torah, right? So then this place becomes a secular place. It becomes no different, than any other place. That's why the land of Israel is a tremendous land of extremes. See, that's why I live here, right? It's a tremendous land of extremes because either you have people all the way to the right, that want to keep Torah, want to keep mitzvahs, and you have all the way to the left as well, which, where you have the greatest amount of holiness, by the Western Wall, even though the temple has been destroyed, at the same time, you have the greatest amount of impurity as well. You imagine there's a cult of devil worship here in Israel. Like it's, it like boggles the mind, what actually, what actually goes on, here. But if you're in your own enclave, within your own, where you live and, the Torah that's going on there. So, okay, so you have to deal with secular people and, et cetera, in different avenues, but again, the whole purpose, of the land of Israel is not to pollute it. The whole purpose of the land of Israel is to build up Torah, right? That is one of the prophecies that has come true, that all the Torah, all the great Torah places, outside the land of Israel, at the end of days, right? They're gonna be transplanted into the land of Israel. Meaning you're gonna have all these yeshivas, like the greatest Torah learning in the world, make no mistake, is in the land of Israel. Doesn't mean there's no Torah learning outside, but the Torah giants, of this generation had education, tremendous amount of time, in the land of Israel itself. So that, so based on that, short, long introduction, that is the conflict. And again, that's going to bring up a whole bunch of issues, but that is the conflict you're going to have, between the secularists and, and people who keep Torah, because the secularists do not want the land of Israel, or quote unquote the state of Israel, to be a Torah state, because they're afraid we'll tell people what to do and they can't live, and and women are going to have to shave their heads, and like all this craziness, right? But and then you have people who want to keep Torah, that want to keep the status quo, and build it up, because again, the more desecration that goes in the land, the more God is going to get ticked off. And this is what some of the commentaries say about what happened in Sodom, right? Why did God wipe out the people of Sodom? There are a number of reasons why they were wiped out, but there are other people doing terrible things. Why didn't God wipe them out? So some of the commentaries say, where are the people of Sodom? They're here in the land of Israel.
Right.
So if you're in God's backyard, so to speak, and you're messing around, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, that's going to tick off God more. If I do it outside the land, it's not going to tick God off. Of course it's going to tick God off. But if you're in his home, you're in his backyard, even though his presence isn't felt necessarily by, you don't see it clearly like it used to be, even though we've definitely seen, miracles by, the last number of wars here, that there's been no question, but at the same time, you go against him, in the land. You want to have a gay parade downtown Jerusalem. Wow. Someone's not going to at least protest and not say, like, this is the wrong thing. I'm not saying people should throw stones and beat up people and all that. But if someone doesn't make a protest in the palace of the king, you imagine you're in the palace of the king and you're flaunting what the Torah calls an abomination. Mm-hmm. Right. There is going to be payback. 100% there's going to be payback, and the payback's going to be tenfold. Why is it going to be tenfold? Because of where it is. If you don't keep the sanctity of the land, as it says at the end of the book of Exodus, in my language, right? It's only my language. Chump don't want it, chump don't get it. That's it. Because God's going to say, I'm giving you a golden opportunity. Keep the holiness of the land. You want to do these other things, these other perversions? Well, guess what? I'm going to come down on you like a ton of bricks. And that's why the land of Israel in so many ways is so volatile. And you look what goes in the world, as people say, oh, Zionism, is racism. And you look at the UN, Israel is 1/1000th of the world's population. They've been condemned more than any nation combined in the UN. Now that doesn't make any sense. Right. It doesn't make any sense. You get all these rogue countries, many of them. You got Iran, you got Somalia, you got all these different places. All the Jews want to do is live in peace. That's all they want. Right. Nobody wants to be bothered. No one wants wars. No one wants people being blown up. And everything they do, even if they have to blow up places, they send out pamphlets. Imagine, they want to show how moral they are by sending out pamphlets. Listen, we're going to blow up this place. Leave. Just get out of town. Nobody would do that in war. And they say, oh, look, you hit this UN building. Look, you hit these other civilian areas. Well, where do you think these people are putting the civilian? Right? Right in the middle of a war zone. Right? So it's like a no-win situation. But if you look at any other nation, nobody gets the scrutiny, certainly that Israel gets. And, you say it's totally not fair, and we have to, fight against that and all, that's true. But, you look at the UN, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. And, and that whole resolution, of Zionism, being racism. I mean, I had somebody, now, keep your Tanakh Talk hat on. I had somebody who told me that, this is a Jew, secular Jew telling me this, that the reason that there's so many problems in the land of Israel is because the Jews are there. Oh, so I said, let me ask you, right? So because the Jews are the land of Israel, that's causing all the problems in the Middle East. So I asked them, I said, let me ask you, the English deserve to be in England? They said yes. I said, Albanians in Albania? Said yes. Czechoslovakia? Okay, I'm dating myself, right? Czechoslovakians belong in Czechoslovakia? Yeah. Italians in Italy? Yeah. Jews in Israel? No. I was like, all right, let's backtrack. All right, so I asked them, I said, where should the Jews go? Where should they have gone? If they know, if you don't believe in the Bible, where should they go? He said they should have stayed in Europe. This is no joke. I'm not making this
Really?
up. This person said they should have stayed in Europe. I said, excuse me, do you know anything about modern history? Anything at all? I said, have you ever heard, let's make a big H. Have you ever heard the word Holocaust? And he said, I said, the Jews tried to stay in Europe, and 6 million of them got killed. He said, oh yeah, it's a good point. I'm like, thank you very much, you idiot. Like, if you gotta quote something, I mean, come on. You know, the Jews don't deserve their own place. They're causing their own problems. Like, that's the whole thing with the, with the so-called Palestinians. There were no Palestinians here. They were nomads. They didn't live here. They were part of all other countries. They're part of Transjordan. They were part of, they were Lebanese. They're all, all these different places. Not like, the Jews were here and they had this whole entity, this whole Palestinian people. You know who created them? Unfortunately, we did. We put them in, refugee camps, and they want to come out. The UN said no, they have the status of refugees. They didn't exist. There were no such thing. You go back 1,000 years, 1,500 years. There were Bedouins. There were people nomads. They didn't have their own. We had our own state. We have our own entity. The Jews came and took us out. What are you kidding? Any other nation that's fought a defensive war, no one's ever had to give land back. There's only one time in history that land was ever given back, and that was in the 70s between Pakistan and India, where they had a population exchange. That's it. The Jews fought a defensive war, and could have been annihilated. So whoever gives land back, right? That's a whole nother, that's a whole nother issue, But so going back to Zionism is racism. Zionism, we don't have a right to the land. That's what they're saying. These poor helpless people you threw out. We didn't throw them out. They wanted to kill us, and one of the things that's, eventually they want to get on the table is to have these million refugees come back that fled. They went to Jordan, they went to other places. Think about that. There are, 6-7 million people, in the land of Israel, including the Arabs. Imagine if you brought a whole nother million of them here in the law of return, because God forbid we threw them out, these poor helpless people, and their families, we threw them out. So imagine what 1 million people would look like demographically. People in Europe are now starting, to get wind of like having 25,000 people from Syria come, and look what they're doing. And look what's going on all over Europe and in Canada and other places. If you took 1 million Arabs and you brought them in here, oh sure, they're gonna live in peace. Sure. They'll live in peace till you're dead. That's when it's gonna be peaceful.
Right.
So so that's Zionism versus Zionism is racism. Why don't we have a claim to the land? The Arabs say, yeah, we have a claim to Jerusalem. It's not even mentioned in the Quran, for goodness sakes. And they're making this whole holy war, it's ours, and you can't take it away from us. It's not even in your holy book.
Really?
We have claim after claim. They want to claim that the Temple Mount, and the temple was never here. Would you like to go through papyrus on that? Would you like to go through, other proof, that the Jewish people have been here for 2,000 years, and have a claim? I mean, it's all fabrication. But the problem is, everybody's eating the same hallucinogenic mushroom. They're all getting the same stupid information and giving it over, right? And, it is so far from the truth. But if you think about it logically, forget from a Torah perspective, every nation deserves their own homeland, right? Maybe some more, some less, whatever. Why should not the Jewish people have their own homeland? In their own place? Now, I'll keep in mind one other thing, and that is, the Holocaust started in Berlin, right? It started in Germany. Now, I'm not gonna, say why the Holocaust happened. We have no idea, right? All we know is it was a tremendous divine decree. At the same time, what was the first thing? One of the first things that the Reform movement wanted to change. One of the first things they wanted to change is in the prayers itself. Instead of saying we're going to go back to Zion, we're going to go back to the land of Israel, right? And that's what we pray for, that the temple should be rebuilt. At the same time, they were saying, no, we don't want to go back to Zion. We don't want to offend anybody. We're going to go back to Berlin. We're going to go back to Miami, right? We're going to go back to these other places, not Zion. Is it a coincidence in Berlin itself that the Holocaust happened exactly there. I'm not saying that's the reason. We don't know what the reason is, but I could guarantee you one thing. If I was in God's mind, and his people were saying, nah, forget about the land of Israel. We don't care about the land of Israel. We're happy right here in Berlin. God says, are you kidding? You know what I put in, for the land of Israel and the holiness and all that? You're very happy in Berlin? Okay, I'm going to show you what is going to happen in this place. And, you're going to be so happy there? No, they're going to spit you out and they're going to kill you. Now, again, is that the reason why it happened? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that is something that could have ticked God off to the point where he said, okay, that's it.
Sure.
I've had enough. This is, there's a boundary. There's a boundary of how much, I can take. But this whole idea, of Zionism is racism in logic. Forget about all the other things. In logic, does not make a whole lot of sense.
Okay, so let's move on to another point and topic, and that's going to be discussing. I had somebody call in a couple times actually, and anyway, they basically said that the black Zionist Jews are the only true Jew, and that all of the Jews that are currently occupying Israel, the light-skinned Jews, that they're not actually truly Jewish. They're imposters. That they are the real identity of Yehuda. What's the story behind all that?
I've been called a lot of things. I've never been called an imposter. I mean, who would I be? Like, who would I? It's like taking an apple and say this is a banana.
Yeah.
Is an apple a banana? I don't think so. I mean, these people aren't even Jewish. I mean, they're claiming, maybe they're one of the lost tribes, and they're really, the true, the true ones. I mean, that's pretty much a crock. What is that based on? What in the world is it based on? What verses are they claiming, it to be based on? Does it look like what Judaism is? Maybe in some ways, it does. But, there are, you got the black Jews, let's say in Dimona, which is in the south, outside of Beersheba, and they'll claim all kinds of things as well, and we're the true ones, etc. But they're not even Jewish, So it's not a DNA issue, right? DNA certainly doesn't prove anything, certainly not for conversion or not anything else. So they want to claim they're one of the lost tribes. They want to claim that they're kind of like the Christians. We are the new chosen people. Yeah, show me the proof. Show me where we've gone. Where we've gone astray. Like the people that came here, they didn't deserve to come here. They didn't have the same they didn't have the same fervor. They didn't have a Jewish mother, and her mother wasn't Jewish, and and all that, and and passed down Judaism. They don't why shouldn't they have a claim, right? They came from Europe, came from Russia, came from North America, came from all over. How in the world can they be imposters, right? I don't know. I don't know what their what their proof text is, that they want to claim that, we're not, we're not the real ones, so to speak. So obviously someone who's coming with a claim, just like the Christians, the onus is going to be on them. You're going to have to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt, and I mean beyond the shadow of a doubt, that, that their claim is true.
Right.
That is, that is going to be, a very hard thing. That gets into the, just as a side point, you take, like, let's say the Ethiopians, right? The Ethiopians, the whole question if they were Jewish or not, because, a lot of them, intermarried, etc. But, keep in mind, there was a lot of, there were a few holidays that they didn't have. The laws of marriage and divorce, they didn't have. So there's a whole problem if you call them, Jews, because, if they didn't have, Jewish law of marriage or divorce, then all their kids are mamzerim. They're, what we'll call bastard children, and they can only marry someone of the same union or a convert. So, in that case, by calling them Jews, you have a major issue. Okay, if they're interested in Torah, we can allow them to convert. But at the same time, things get lost. Not just in translation, right? But things were taken away from them. Right, holidays. There were certain things they didn't have, So since they were totally immersed in the secular society around them, how in the world can you say that they're the same as any Jew living anywhere else? That's a little bit hard to say, but it's a much bigger problem. And the reason it's a much bigger problem is because they didn't have the laws of divorce and marriage. And if they didn't have the laws of divorce and marriage, you got a real serious halachic problem. With that, there is a difference of opinion. I'll just throw out there, whether these people are actually Jews or not. According to the chief rabbinate, they held, here in Israel, they held that, they are Jews. They don't have to convert. Mostly everybody else holds not that way. So, there is that, there is that idea as well. It's not about discrimination. It's a question of, what did they have, and where they're coming from. So that is the major, in some ways, major sore point as well. It's not a question of, we're better, we think we're better, we're just coming to discriminate. If you show that it's authentic, that's one thing. But if there are, serious flaws, if there are serious flaws in it, which there are, there are a number of issues, we're not gonna say, oh, welcome back. These are part of our people, either yes or either no, right? But there are going to be very, very serious, ramifications. And like anything else, people are coming and saying, we're the new ones or we're the chosen ones or whatever. You got to back it up with credentials, some level of credentials. And if you don't have credentials, especially people that call themselves rabbis or whatever, you don't have credentials, I'm not interested whatsoever. Right. Credentials are everything.
It's everything in every field. I mean, why is it that now that whenever it talks about Judaism in the Bible, people don't care about credentials? But I guarantee you, if somebody pulls them over on the side of the road claiming to be a police officer, they're going to want to see some proof. Or if they come up to you saying, hey, I'm supposed to come take your child because blah, 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 you're going to say, no, you better show me some proof or I'm going to show you a bullet through your head. I mean, why is it all of a sudden with Judaism, they want to say, well, that doesn't really apply here. So it's really nonsense, right? Okay, let me read a comment.
There's so many things like that, about showing proof and everything else. But you just hit on one thing. I'll just hit it for 1 second.
Sure, go for it.
The idea of showing proof and all that, when it comes to Judaism, everything goes out the window.
Right.
Because in most things, there's such a level of cognitive dissonance when it comes to this. The Jews should have stayed in Europe. What about all these other countries can have their own people? Yeah, that's fine, but not the Jews. Why not? Because they're Jews. Where's the logic?
Right. Okay, I'm going to read a comment here by Zachariah on YouTube. He says, don't these quote-unquote black Hebrew Israelites also accept the New Testament as scripture? How can such people be Jews?
That's the case.
They lose their Jewish ID with accepting that, right?
So it's kind of like what we said. Anyone who's seen my my conversion video with you when I blew up your system? So that was one of the questions. How can you be a Jew and still believe in, in JC? So it's kind of like going to the mikveh or the ritual bath. You want to become pure and you have a dead rodent in your hand at the same time. Like, you can't do it. You're still impure. The same thing. You want to hold this guy in a stick or, whatever the idolatry is and still say, no, I'm holding by being a Jew, as well. Sorry, it doesn't, it doesn't go. It doesn't make any logical sense. I just spoke to someone yesterday who was, who was coming out of the Messianics or came out of the Messianics. And you look back in the Bible, you see all their, crummy proofs and all that. You can't have both, right? That's the thing I mentioned, that people coming out of idolatry, that's exactly what they see. That eventually they come out of it, or some of them come out of it, and they say you can't have both worlds. You cannot have your cake and eat it. I don't even know what that means. Like, if I want my cake, I will eat it. What do you mean I can't have it? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But, at the same time, you cannot have both worlds. They don't work.
Right.
I'm not even going to go into why. I mean, there are a lot of reasons. There are a lot of reasons why. But if that is true, and they are holding on, to Christian ideas and the New Testament, said, we're the new Jews. Yeah, good luck. That doesn't fit in.
Okay, so the whole Zionist title, is that even important? Obviously, an Orthodox Jew was going to do Aliyah for a very important reason, but it is Zionist title, is that important to be attached to someone who has a conversion or to because honestly it wasn't until this last year that I even heard of Zionism. I actually heard of it before, but I never even knew what it was because it hasn't been a hot topic, but now it's coming up more and more and more
because you haven't been on controversial issues that can come up yet.
Right, so in my mind I'm thinking, okay, Zionists, because you hear Christian Zionism, you hear these messianic people who believe in Jesus as their savior. Of course, they put a different package on it. Yeshua, right. They call them different variable names, but they're all claiming to be Zionists. Why is there a need to be called a Zionist to begin with? What's the whole point? I know the move and what it means, but why do you need to have that title?
You don't. I'll just give you one example. When it comes to conversion, the only thing that's going to matter is if a person converts in the States or wherever they convert. If they want to come to the land of Israel, it has to be recognized by the chief rabbinate. Doesn't mean you're a Zionist. Just people will say you live in the land of Israel, you're a Zionist. Well, there are plenty of people in the land of Israel don't hold by the government at all. They don't get money from the government, right? They don't deal with they have to deal with government things. But, they don't hold to the government itself. In other words, they don't get money from the government. Their kids don't do the army. Other things. So being a Zionist, someone says, well, you live in Israel, and you've been here 21 out of the last 24 years. Well, 3 years in between, we'll talk about. But, so you're a Zionist. Yeah, I love the land because of Torah. Because of the Torah. I don't love what's going on here. I don't love what the government's trying to do. etc., and what they're doing against, Orthodox Jews. Yeah, technically speaking, I do live here. That's true. Those say, oh, you're a Zionist. Yeah, okay. I live here. Okay, but more than that doesn't mean anything. It just, for the Christians it means something. Oh, we love the land. You know why they love the land? So as I mentioned to you before, I love the land because if the Jews come to the land, that means that their Savior's going to come back. Well, let's see. Let's see if that's going to be the case or not. There are Christian Zionists who don't believe that. Christian Zionists and many that do. That's the reason, because they want all the Jews to be there, so their quote unquote Savior can come back. So in realistic terms, does it really mean a whole heck of a lot? You call someone a Zionist, or not, doesn't really mean that much. Maybe outside the land of Israel, a person, identifies with the land of Israel. Yeah, if you're on a college campus, that'd get you beat up, or, all kinds of other things. And you could be a secular Jew, and have a connection, to the land. But the reality is it doesn't really matter, because, according to the Torah, Zion is where all, the Jews are going to come back to. And, when the Messiah comes, all the Jews are going to be here. That's one of the things, one of the signs he is the Messiah. He's going to bring ingathering of the exiles. So I heard a great rabbi once say, someone came to him, he was living in Florida, and it was a rabbi in Florida, and he said, this Jew came to him, and whatever, they were talking, he said, Rabbi, when I make Aliyah, Aliyah means going to the land of Israel. He goes, I'm going straight to Miami Beach. He goes, the land of Israel says not King's Land, Texas, it's Miami Beach. So he said, well, this guy missed the boat.
Funny.
Zion equals Miami Beach. You don't like Miami Beach? Sorry.
Okay, question. Are ultra-Orthodox anti-Zionists?
That's a good question.
That's Michael.
We have any other questions anyone wants to deal with?
Michael Fairclough. By the way, the phone lines are open, guys. If you're gambling on typing a question and I may not see it, call in 855-95-BIBLE. It's on your screen right now. So definitely call in.
So there are two camps. One camp, when it comes to the land of Israel, I'll speak about that. There's an ultra-Zionist camp from Satmar and a few other communities, Hasidic communities, where they believe 100% you're not allowed to do anything in the land of Israel, build it up, etc. That's what the Messiah is for. That's what the Jewish Messiah is for. Now, so they hold, totally forbidden. There are Satmar Hasidim that live here, right? But they don't hold to the state. They don't hold to the state of all, at all. So on the other side, people will agree, and it doesn't matter where you're coming from. Everybody will agree that the fact that the Jewish people are in the land of Israel right now, after the Holocaust, and you can say maybe one of the end results of the Holocaust were that the Jewish people got their own state, for better or for worse. That is an absolute miracle. That for 2,000 years we've been praying for to go back to the land. Everybody agrees this is the beginning, certainly, of the redemption. Now, whether the Jews are going to stay in the land when the Messiah comes, that's a whole discussion. But at present state, there will be groups that don't hold of the land. I mean, most Orthodox groups don't hold of what's going on in the land, per se. But there are others that, even if they don't hold by what goes on, they'll say that there's a mitzvah to live there.
Right.
And that it would be, if people wanted to go there, then it's a tremendous thing. The only issue is the fact of what goes on. What goes on in the land of Israel, meaning what the government does, what they try and do and go against, Orthodox Jews, etc. I remember once many years ago, I was with my wife somewhere downtown, and, not, within, 10-minute walk, the Western Wall, and, you see how people were dressed, and what people were saying, and what, etc. So my wife made this comment and said, yeah, there's a reason we're still in exile. There's a reason why, the Messiah hasn't come, and why, the temple hasn't been rebuilt. We're our own, worst enemy. The land of Israel, spiritually speaking, has a tremendous amount of holiness. I wouldn't be half the person or half the crack person that I am, had I not, been here and been around Torah giants, and all that. And anyone who's come to visit says it's a totally, different place and a different, experience. But make no mistake, if I click my heels 3 times, I'm not going to be in Kansas, right?
Right.
No offense to anyone in Kansas or named Toto, right? But at the end of the day, when you look at what the secular Jews in this country and what they want, one of the biggest gay and lesbian communities in the world is in Tel Aviv.
Wow.
That means we are very far from where we need to be.
Right.
So again, where you have the most amount of holiness, you have the most amount of impurity at the same time. That's why Israel's a land of extremes, right? In many, many, different ways. So, you have many people, and most people will agree that living in the land of Israel is no great shakes for what goes on here, for what the government does and what they want to do, and all that. There was one of the most left-wing people used to be in the government many years ago, came on the radio and said explicitly that when we're done, and this we can get in a whole discussion also, that, when we're done dealing with the Arabs, we're going to deal with the ultra-Orthodox Jews. And a lot of them believe that because there's so much hatred, because they just don't believe in anything, they don't want to believe in anything, and they don't want to be told what to do. And they have no connection. They have no connection to the Torah whatsoever, and to what the Torah wants from the land of Israel, and what we should be doing in it. That's why you have this tremendous conflict between the secular and the Orthodox, because again, when they came in, that's what they wanted. They wanted just to have nothing to do with Judaism.
All right, let's take this call. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Hi, my name's David from London.
Hi, David. Welcome to the show. What's the question for Rabbi?
Hi. I wanted to know what he thinks about the... So I understand that anti-Zionists, or religious anti-Zionists, have this... I can kind of hear my voice echoing back to me, so it's hard for me to focus on my thought, but I'll try.
Okay.
The religious anti-Zionists base part of their objection on the 3 oaths, which are in, Tractate Ketuvot, page Roman 0b, to the beginning of Roman 1a. But Now I emailed a while back. I emailed this Stuckman guy, and I put an argument to him, a Zionist argument. So I put a religious Zionist argument, which is that the Hasmonean dynasty rules Israel, and if this guy, this religious anti-Zionist guy, was correct, and the 3 oaths were to apply, then they wouldn't have been allowed to rule it. It's been a while since I looked at the subject, but I put that argument in. And what he said was that there's a midrash on the 3. I mean, he's a kind of a non-Zionist rather than an anti-Zionist, perhaps. But anyhow, or maybe he was an anti-Zionist. But what he said was that there's a midrash on the Shir HaShirim, because that's what the Sfiros are kind of connected to, which says that it. Anyhow, I'm just curious for what you think of it. Anyway.
Okay, don't hang up just yet, if you don't mind. Rabbi, did you catch a pretty clear line of sight on his questions?
No.
At all? I mean...
No, I mean, I heard a little bit. It was kind of garbled.
Okay, maybe I could just turn it up somewhere. Okay, do me a favor, David. I know you were talking about this point in time. You said there's religious anti-Zionist, meaning when you say religious, are you talking about Jewish religious or like just religious in general?
Oh, that I got. Yeah.
Okay, and this was during the time of the Hasmonean dynasty, right, or period. So I'm not sure what the actual question was, though. Are you asking? Is it?
Okay, I guess the sometimes religious Zionists would say that after when we're in Gullus, when we're in exile, they're not allowed to have a Jewish state. You've got to wait for Mashiach to come.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I got it.
My argument back to this guy was, what about in the time of Hanukkah when you had the Maccabees and Hasmoneans and so on? They were ruling that land.
Okay.
Surely that we can assume that they understood what the Torah teaches.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Okay, great. David, thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate it. Let's hang up and you can watch for your answer, okay? Thank you. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
right.
so I'll take the second part before we get to the first part. The idea of the Hasmonean.
First of all, restate the questions if you don't mind.
I think that the question, if I got it right, was this about religious Zionism and not building up the state, before before the Messiah comes. I think that was that's certainly what the anti-religious Zionists will hold. And then the whole thing about the fact that the Hasmoneans came, took over the land, and were in charge for a couple hundred years. What about them? You see that that we do have a right.
Okay.
To the land. So I'll take the second point first. The Hasmoneans, when they came in and they got rid of the Greeks, and there was one crucible of oil, and that's the whole mitzvah, of lighting the menorah on Hanukkah. You should keep in mind there's a whole question that how they didn't come from the tribe of Yehuda. How were they allowed to take power? Right, so you could say, well, it was it was a certain amount of time, and it was a certain time period. They did it or whatever, but the Talmud says clear: anyone who claims they're from the Hasmonean dynasty is called a slave. Why are they called a slave? Because they were wiped off the face of the map. There was no Hasmoneans left. They got wiped off the face of the map. Why? So seemingly they took what was not rightfully theirs. In other words, you're 100% right. They got the Greeks out and they took over. Problem was they weren't allowed to. They weren't allowed to take power. So then you get into the whole question, which is a whole long discussion we're not going to get into, but they are taken to task for taking power that they should not have done. Was not in their, that was not in their right to do. And therefore they got wiped off the face of the map to the extent where there's nothing left of them. So that's not necessarily a proof that just because we took over the land doesn't mean we have a right to it. Even though in general, I beat you up, I take your lunch money, it's mine. right? Might doesn't make right only in the case where when God says you're going to go in the land and wipe out the nation because this is what this is what I'm telling you to do, and you have a right to the land, that's fine, right? But you also can lose the land. So these anti-religious Zionists will say, you don't have a right to the land till the Messiah comes, right? There may be some other proofs in Tanakh as well that that the proof that the land, one of the things the Messiah has to do is build up the land. So who says we're allowed to take it? Who says we're allowed, even from the UN, even from other nations who give us the land? Who says we're allowed to take it? So that is going to be their stance, and they'll say we have no right to take it until the Messiah comes. And he has to build up the land. The other side will say, we have a right even before the Messiah comes, right? But how far do you take that? So there will be Jews that will say, we still want to bring sacrifices on the Temple Mount. Yeah, you can't do that for a lot of reasons. Many of them are halachic reasons, and many of them are practical reasons. You try and bring a sheep up on the Temple Mount, and you're a Jew, you're as good as a goner. Police are not going to let you go up there. It's an act of provocation, right? Anytime a prime minister has gone up on the Temple Mount, that's when another intifada started, right? So that's not practical. But taking over the land, certainly no proof, right? Who said, it could be, the way other people look at it, they'll say that the fact we're in the land itself right now, 2,000 years later, that should show we have a right to the land, right? And that's, God shining his presence upon us. But keep in mind, there's a medrash on Psalms, on Tehillim, that says when the Messiah comes, he's going to bring the Jews from the desert. That means the Jews at the end of days are not going to be in the land of Israel. So I remember I was taking my Rebbe somewhere and he had this big smile. He says, yeah, the Medrash says this is what's going to happen and the Jews aren't going to be here. And he had this big smile. So I looked at him and I'm like, what are you smiling at? You're not going to be here either. You're also going to be in the desert. You're also going to be sucking up sand. Like, come on, what are you laughing at? So at the end of the day, even though we're here right now, even the Jews, even the ultra Orthodox Jews that live here, and they're living here because, they believe it's the best place to be, and many will hold it is the mitzvah to live here. That's a whole discussion also. Boy, got a lot of topics that are big discussions here. Anyway, it's a big discussion whether it's a mitzvah to live here, but everybody will claim, except unless you're a religious Zionist, and many of the religious Zionists will say the same thing, that what the secular government does, to Orthodox Jews and what they want to do, then, it's, they're against it. Because the state of Israel is not run by the Torah, and that's what we want. But you can only have that when the Messiah comes. You're not gonna have that anytime before. But so for those religious Zionists, they'll say, yeah, it's a mitzvah to come here. It's definitely a mitzvah to be here. And it's a good thing to be in the land. That is true. But when you see all the other things going on in the land itself and what they want to do against the Torah, then God cannot be so ecstatic, except for the fact that the only protection the Jewish people have in the land of Israel by the people sitting and learning Torah. That is the divine protection, because you got 7, 8 nations ready to rip this country to shreds, God forbid. And if it wouldn't be for people sitting and learning, we certainly wouldn't be here. But again, there is no guarantee. They could just sign over the land, to the Arabs. I mean, Omer, for goodness sakes, was willing to give away 90%, 90% of indefensible land. If you look where the West Bank, quote unquote, is, you can't defend that. That's like in the heart of the whole country. That's like saying, Israel's the size of the state of New Jersey. We're going to give up 3/4 of the state to a hostile nation. What do you think it's going to, what do you think? We're going to give it all to the rednecks. Good luck.
Hey, I resemble that remark.
Everyone's going to be driving in trucks and have guns and all that. Who's going to want to live there? No offense. But But that's what's going to be. It's totally indefensible. And when these Arab marauders were attacking left and right, it was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster. So they want the whole thing. They want 100%. And if you don't give them 100%, they just want to, you put them in power here, we're dead. That's it. It's gone. It's game over. But you have to look at, again, you have to look at it from the perspective, of, do we deserve to be here? Is the land ours, and what does that mean? Is it based on Torah? It's not based on Torah. And, some will say, you have to wait. You can't do anything to build it up. And others will say, no, we have a right. We have a right to live wherever we want. We can build it up, and might makes right. Now, if we don't deserve it, God's going to boot us out, or boot us out of certain areas, or, God forbid, right? Don't forget, chump don't want it, chump don't get it. That's, that is what potentially could happen. So that is really, the crux of that conflict.
Well, I tell you what, it's been a long night. Probably not long enough for you. You're just getting started, but long day for me. So I'm going.
Yeah, just have caffeine. What do you mean? I'm going. Come on.
I know, right? That's funny. So there you go, folks. We may visit this Zionism next week as well, depending on if we get some more comments coming in or something like that might cause us on. Otherwise, just wait till next week. Same time, same place. Listen at 8 p.m. Controversial Issues with Rabbi Chaim Coffman. And we will look forward to seeing you all there. Rabbi, thank you for your time. And thank you all for tuning in. Shalom, shalom, everybody. We'll see you again later on the other side. Take care. Shalom.
Shalom. Bye.
ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה והכמיהה. אני אתה אתם תמיד כולם ביחד, חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה